Just got a message saying it's live. It's now streaming on
You're
YouTube.
on.
Yep.
Congratulations, Paul.
Well, thank you.
He's Mr. Techie.
I suggest if you have YouTube up, I'd suggest that you mute your YouTube because it's on a slight delay. So if you are kind of keeping an eye towards YouTube, I would suggest that you. Okay, so it looks like we're live on YouTube. Let me double check it. That looks good. Anybody that has a spouse or a friend, can somebody have them just double check YouTube on their end, and we'll just to make sure somebody besides us can confirm it. You can unmute yourself. And by the way, guys, a quick way to unmute yourself is spacebar if you want to, I believe. That could be.
Spacebar, but you
I
have
was
to
able
hold
to
it
see the
down.
YouTube stream.
I think spacebar works, but you have to hold it down for the entire time you want to be
Gotcha.
unmuted.
Okay, so then I'll scratch the spacebar tip.
Just for old time's sake, I've got the camera guys in the other room just so they feel like they're part of the meeting.
Nice. Good fallback.
If you are
think
curious
that's-
about, if you do want to keep an eye on the public, the attendees tab, when you click participants, the attendees tab, it will show an indicator next to the person's name if they are looking to speak. And if anybody's looking to speak, when it doesn't make sense, I'll just say into the camera and encourage them to speak when it's public comment time.
So you're gonna start the meeting with some instructions for folks, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
Tom, I did
Go
get
ahead.
asked whether we're gonna be able to do the SCTV stream.
No, I've
So right
not made
now, we're
arrangements.
not, right?
No, I've not made arrangements for that. We could look into it. Our thought was that YouTube is just so accessible and easy for folks. Not for everyone, I appreciate, but I could look at what it would take for us to have this go out on SCTV as well.
Yeah, just for, I guess for the folks who don't use computers, they would just be able to do it the same way they were used to. What channel is it now? It's not, it used to be channel 2. That's not what it is
Like
anymore. I don't have cable. I haven't had cable for years.
1302 or something like that, 1 and 2. I'll check into that tomorrow so we have an answer going forward.
Thanks so much.
Looks like Jean Marie's directing traffic. In Rome.
Man, this is surreal. Who would have thought a month ago we were doing town council meetings like this? It was legal at that point in time.
Moves
Right.
pretty fast. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
You remember the old series, The Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
This is how it introduced. That was the godfather of this technology.
There you go. Great memory.
Okay, so I think we're saying that Paul is going to sing.
Yeah, I can do that. I got my daughter coming in with the agenda, so.
Is she gonna hold it, or what's she gonna do? Hello. Thank you.
Cody usually prints it out for me, so I was lost without my agenda over here.
So Tony, are you familiar to clicking on the attendees just so you can collect names?
Up in the upper right corner,
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Tony, I love the sign. Be thankful.
Oh, thank you. My son made the chalkboard for us.
That's great.
Very nice.
I'm sure if it matters, I can hear music or perhaps a TV in the background somewhere.
Norm, hold on.
That-
Okay,
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tell them they'll be saying the same thing in an hour when we're done, so you can just hear it then.
It was funny. I had this new world. I realized about 5 minutes before a Zoom meeting that was going to be live that I hadn't combed my hair, brushed my teeth, shaved, or showered. So it was like, oh, this is a whole new world.
That's perfectly acceptable now, Peter.
Yeah. All day long, I've had like business casual on top and my PJs on the bottom. That's probably too much information, but it
Thank you.
sure is really comfortable.
Well, those that are watching on YouTube already, that's good. It's a good way to start the meeting. So
So do we see the attendees that are on YouTube that come up on our screen?
we don't. So on the agenda, at the top of the agenda, I think, are you looking at the agenda right now, Peter?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, Zoom is if you want to be an active member of the public, and then YouTube is if you want to just simply watch from home.
Gotcha. Okay. So how many participants are on YouTube right now?
I don't know. I'm trying to keep that out of my site just because I'm running it. But
Okay.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if it's
Yeah, there
actually.
is a-
I know for your joint finance committee meeting, I could see how many people are watching it with me.
There's 5 right now.
Okay. Good.
I wonder if we're able to collect metrics after the fact, views and such through YouTube. We should be able to, right? Yeah, they catalog that.
And Paul, unless you're opposed, I would just, encourage people to type in a comment or two, just since it's brand new for us to make sure it's, working the way we think it does.
Yeah, we did about a half-hour test run today with a couple of my colleagues, but yes, I will.
Oh,
I'll definitely
perfect.
do it. Yeah. I'm going to start the recording here on my end. Okay, I am going to call this meeting to order. This is Wednesday, April 1st. This is the regular town council meeting of Scarborough, Maine. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I think we got through the toughest part of the meeting, so that's good. Before we get started today, I will just, actually, you know what, we'll do a roll call and then I'll address how we're gonna run things. So, Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
Here.
Counselor Hayes,
Here?
Counselor Gleisteen,
Here?
Counselor Katerina,
Here?
Counselor Johnson,
Here.
Counselor Hamel,
Here.
and Chairman Johnson.
Here. So before we get into general public comments, for those that are watching at home and for those that are with us on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, there is a way for you to indicate it in your chat box as an attendee. So I'm looking at our attendees and we have approximately 8 people, or exactly 8 people watching us right now in this meeting. There is a way for you to signal that you would like to speak, in which case I will make your microphone live. And then you can make your public comments, and then I will turn your microphone off. And I will acknowledge the public, hopefully in the exact same manner that I would at any other meeting, which would be at the appropriate times that I call for So with that being said, item number 4 is general public comments. So I'm looking over here into the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? And I'm going to pause for a slightly uncomfortable amount of time to make sure if there is somebody, they can try to figure out how to signal to me.
Paul?
Yeah.
Will
Ms.
you be
Amstad,
read-
did you want to speak? Okay, Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates, if you want to, you are automatically muted. So if you want to just click in your bottom left-hand corner, you can unmute yourself and then speak.
Hi, this is only a test, and I appreciate allowing me to participate this way. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the test. We needed it. Good. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak? Just raise your hand. Anybody else?
Hey, Paul, I have a question.
Yes.
Are you going to read the typed in comments?
No, I am not. If people would like to speak, they can signal that they can speak, just like at a regular town council meeting. So we're going to try to keep this as normal as possible. And I believe there's one more, and you are live. If you would like to turn on your mic.
Yes, good evening. This is Rick Meinking. I'm a member of the planning board, and I'm just doing this so that I can be more proficient when we have to do this. But I would just want to say thank you for all the work the town continues to do during this rather difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I should acknowledge that we should say our name and our address when you talk, but I think Tody has this from now. So thank you, everybody. Anybody else? Okay, for the rest of you at home, we're going to run this as much as we can like a typical in-person town council meeting. So if a councilor wants to speak, all they're going to do is simply raise their hand and I will call on them. And one other quick thing is we do have to do each vote by roll call. So our voting will be a little slower than normal as the town clerk has to call on each one of us individually. So with that being said, item number 5 are the approval of the minutes of the March 4th, 2020 regular town council meeting. And do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Tody, would you like to take the vote?
Yes. Counselor Pucci,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Glystein,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes,
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, I believe there will be a request for an adjustment to the agenda.
yes, Mr. Chairman, at this point in time, I'd like to move that we move up item number 10, the town manager's report and a new business, and handle that at the top of the business this evening.
And do we vote on that, Tody? I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, where it's an adjustment to the agenda. I know you have in the past, but it's not really required.
Okay, so I'll accept the adjustment to the agenda. Good.
Thank you.
So we're going to do that before the old business. Item number 7 is items to be signed, treasurer warrants. I have not done so, but I believe there's an apparatus for me to do that. So we'll take care of that offline. So with that said, item number 10 will be the town manager's report. So I will hand this over to Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Johnson. 3 items that I'd like to report on this evening. I'll just kind of couch the first one in kind of a COVID update. I need to come up with a better term that seems far overused, but it's going to suffice for tonight. I wanted to provide the public and the council with an update regarding kind of activities here, how we've been handling things over the last 3 weeks, and what the next 4 weeks outlook is for us. That's as of today anyway. So for all of us, we've appreciated that the last 3 weeks have really been a period of great uncertainty and turmoil, and that is likely to continue. Although I must say, with the governor's order that takes effect at midnight tonight, from an operational point of view, I feel as though that's adding a level of consistency. I think we're able to think in a longer view now, And I think the situation, that order mandates for us as a business will hold true during that period. So it allows us a little bit more time to think about how we're going to continue to offer critical services to our residents. I'm pleased to say staff has been incredibly resilient. We spent the better part of this week getting up and running and operating remotely. And I'm really amazed at the level of productivity that continues to be happening. And I would expect that will only increase as we get even more proficient. Our frontline crews, public safety, obviously doesn't have a choice. They are on the front lines of this battle as we speak. In the last 2 days, we have reported our first 2 positive cases on staff. These are so let that be a lesson to all of us that it is alive and well in our community and is likely to be more and more frequent occurrence. From an operational point of view, we are doing everything that we believe is appropriate to understand where the exposures possibly were, retracing steps, comparing schedules, and really making sure that existing staff, particularly in those areas that need to continue to report here for work, we're taking every precaution necessary. At this point, we're still able to conduct code inspections in the field with proper protocols in place. The assessing department is active doing their field work as well. That can be done often from the windshield without getting out of the vehicle. So again, safety precautions are in place. And for the last week or so, and for the next 4 weeks, we expect Public Works, at least the operations side, will be working on an as-needed basis. And when I say as needed, the crew was in today and delivered 80 meals. And so I'm not talking about a snow emergency necessarily. When there is work to be done and we can assure their safe practices, they are quick to respond. So with the uncertainty, we've taken some immediate actions. As you're aware, back in the fall, we put in place a budget curtailment, which obviously continues through and will through the fiscal year. We have a hiring freeze in place for all non-essential staff, and those are non-public safety staff essentially. And we've also, this week, unfortunately, had to furlough all part-time employees. And so those actions have already taken place. As I look out over the next 4 weeks, I do expect to maintain the full-time staff with pay and benefits. Again, the vast majority of whom continue to provide great service to our community. If people need services of the town, please pick up the phone, email us. I expect you'll find us to be quite responsive to your needs. Beyond that, we'll have to consider other measures, and I don't think this is sustainable indefinitely. But these monies have been budgeted. Staff continues to produce and is ready, willing, and able to work, and we're up and doing so. At the same time, I'm really striving to keep all of our outdoor recreation spaces open and available to our residents. It comforted me. I did consult with our medical expert, Dr. Martel, and he is strongly in support of us consistently allowing opportunities for our residents to get some fresh air and some outdoor exercise, and that includes the beach areas. I think our arrangement over the weekend worked reasonably well. The weather assisted us, and as I look at the weather going forward, that's probably going to help us again. But this is something we'll have to monitor fairly closely and modify our plan as needed. I am in daily contact with my counterpart in Old Orchard Beach, particularly as it relates to Pine Point Beach. We share that beach, and so I think we need to be very mindful of what position each town is taking in that regard. So I'm interested in hearing input from the council and from the public about these matters, but right now we think so long as folks are practicing all the physical distancing and proper hygiene and the like, those spaces are safe to use, and we should keep them open for that purpose. The other part related to this is this is happening right at budget process, or at least the start of budget process, and will likely continue through the majority, if not all of it. This occurrence has caused me to rethink and to rework the budget, and that rework has really kind of turned things upside down from a production point of view. And so we're still on schedule to make presentation a week from tonight on April 8th. The budget materials available for that night will be fairly sparse comparatively to our full budget book. And we do endeavor to get out that full book ultimately to you in the days and weeks to follow. But I assure you, you'll have all the information, certainly the charter requires, and that you'll require to appreciate the budget request. And then the other material will be coming in behind that. And I hope you appreciate the challenges that we're facing. And I think it's really important for us and for me to posture the budget conversation in the best possible light and the appropriate light, given the circumstances. And that, of course, has some consequence. The last thing I just want to update you on is the public safety building. In spite of all this uncertainty, the project continues. The workforce has suffered as people have become ill or are unable to attend their duties here for one reason or another, but the work continues. Today, we received our first furniture shipment as a demonstration of how far and close we are to the completion of this project, but it is still very tenuous. A single day in occurrence could change things dramatically. So we're anxious, to say the least, that the things stay on track, but so far so good. As regards the sale of the public safety building, we still have to satisfy that final contingency related to changing zoning on that parcel. That matter is before the planning board and will be heard at the planning board on April 23rd, I believe it is. And so my full expectation is it's back in front of you on May 6th. I have asked for an extension, a 1-month extension to close the deal. And I'm waiting for language from the seller. And I'm still hopeful if I'm not able to do that, I will need to come back to you and talk about what our options are looking forward. And the last thing is I will be part of a mediation session. This is a mediation regarding some of the design defects on the building that did not cause delays, that will not cost the town any money, but we need to sort out the differences between the general contractor and the architect, and the town sits in the middle of that discussion. So that's a matter that I'm anxious to partake in and to settle up on so we can make everyone whole going forward. So with that, that's a brief overview of a very brisk couple of weeks, 3 weeks, and I'm pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Sorry, I didn't mute on. Councilor Hayes?
Yeah, this is a question for the town manager or through the chair. I did have some questions today just about, what is going to be the process as we navigate through the next 30 days and whether it escalates or doesn't escalate. What is sort of the process about decision-making for closing, public spaces or those types of things? And so some people were just curious about what the process will be and authorities and that type of thing. So either whatever's appropriate for the answer, I just think the public should hear how we've approached that, the thought process and some of the rationale for what we've done would be really helpful, I think.
Yeah, terrific question, and I'm pleased to answer it. Every time I've found a thought that we should be taking or considering some action, the governor has thankfully taken action that at least in my view, I think has been appropriate and kind of incrementally more directive. So because of that, I've not seen the need to declare an emergency and therefore exercise any emergency powers. Our emergency management ordinance bestows that authority on me after consultation with the council chair, and I have been in constant communication with the council chair. And so I just have not seen the need to do so yet. If the need arises, we can do that fairly swiftly. I will make every effort not only to include the chair, but to the extent we can, if time allows, to involve the full council in those discussions. And I hope the council appreciates, I think I've tried to be very clear in my personal and professional opinion about open spaces. And I would hope that you would offer your perspective and object if you think that we're going astray here. So we're really trying to walk that fine line to follow the public health experts and to do the right thing for our community in all respects. And that's not an easy tightrope to walk. So if the opportunity and the circumstance requires it, we certainly have the ability to declare an emergency and to take some fairly drastic action locally if we see the need. I guess the last piece I'll say, part of my work late last week was I was part of a very small group that talked to the governor directly about some of the specific concerns in southern Maine. Maine is a big, vast state with lots of differences. And so quite honestly, I was surprised she took statewide action given the variation statewide. And so at that time, I believed, and I still maintain, having a consistent approach rather than this patchwork parochial approach town by town would be far superior. And I'm hopeful that all the residents of Maine have the message, have the warning, and heed it. And by my personal observation, people seem to be doing a pretty good job already, and I hope and expect we'll see even further compliance going forward.
So I'm gonna slightly unorthodox, but there is a question in the audience, and I'm actually gonna take it simply because of the format. And so, Mr. Wood, if you want to unmute yourself and ask it through me.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And through the chair, thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to watch and experience this new way of doing business. My question is, I would imagine that this new environment could bring additional financial burdens onto the town. And I was curious if the town is pursuing any kind of relief that might be made available through that recently passed CARES Act.
Okay, Mr. Wood, I'm going to mute you now simply because you asked, but thank you. And I'll allow the manager to answer that. Thank you. Yep.
Certainly, for some weeks, we have prepared ourselves to make sure we can take full advantage of any reimbursement of costs as part of this emergency declaration. And so we have payroll codes that have been placed for now 2 full weeks, tracking all costs. This is unlike a natural disaster where there is fairly easy to track costs. We're not quite sure what those are, so we're kind of casting a wide net. Beyond that, these bills that the federal government have passed are massive and omnibus in nature. And so at first glance, there doesn't appear to be very direct aid to at least municipal governments. But we do have staff that's scouring through those as we speak, and I assure you we'll take advantage of every opportunity. The one piece that we are quite aware of is employee benefits through unemployment and those sorts of things. So part of our furloughing of part-time employees, we are certainly well aware of the unemployment benefits that have come through some of this emergency legislation. So great question, and we'll continue to monitor that. And I assure you we'll be first in line to get our share.
Tom, could you just tilt your camera down just ever so slightly for us so we can see? Oh, yeah, maybe a little bit more up. I'm sorry. We were just there missing half your face there for a little bit.
Oh, so, thank you.
Councilor Gleisten.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to put the town manager on the spot, but Tom, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to all the things SEDCO is doing.
I wish I could. I mean, I haven't had the time, and I've had the confidence that Karen has really done a terrific job. I know she, in short order, within a couple of days, put together a Facebook page that is called The Bus. It's Business Update Scarborough, and it's intended to be a platform for businesses to provide updates about what they're doing and to trade information. I know she has daily Zoom meetings that folks are able to avail themselves of. Last week, she had former Department of Labor Commissioner Rick Snow as a guest, well received, very knowledgeable person. And so I think she's doing a terrific job in terms of understanding need. More recently, with the designation of essential and non-essential businesses, she is the one that we're referring inquiries to. Not surprisingly, a lot of businesses want to know, are they essential or not? And she doesn't profess to have all the answers, but she's helping them sift through those sorts of things. So I'm very pleased with her and Magda, just a small team, being able to mobilize and I think do their best to respond to the fluid situation.
And I don't want to misspeak, but I think Rick Snow is going to help be a type of liaison through the SBA, the Small Business Administration, for the complexity of these ways to get cash or help with your business. So definitely visit the SEDCO website, because Karen's got information up there, and you can jump to some links, and certainly you can email her and contact her and join the call. It's a
Great.
lot of good stuff going on over there. And she's in contact with the chamber as well, from my understanding.
Yeah, just because we're freestyling this a little bit, just to add to that, I spent an hour and a half on the phone with Karen yesterday. She was tremendous help. I'm in the situation where I am trying to navigate through those programs. My Scarborough business, my business, so to speak, has never had contact with Karen. We've been receiving information from Setsco that is about the bus that Tom just mentioned. So from my perspective, I've already tapped into the resources, so they're there. So if you're out there watching, pick up the phone, call, and it's still a lot of stuff to figure out, but it's definitely a huge resource for us in the business community. So.
Yeah, and this was mentioned, Portland Chamber does have some tremendous resources that they've been able to really consolidate and share. It's if there's one place I direct folks to, that would be one of them, just because they've really consolidated a lot of the key resources that business owners would find helpful.
Any more questions for the town manager? Councilor Gleisteen?
Do we want to speak at all to the effort of Project Grace combined with the library, combined with SMAA?
Certainly, I appreciate your discussion prompts, and I beg your pardon for not covering this territory before. The town staff has partnered with Project Grace, Steffi Cox in particular. She's really a one-person show, though she has a legion of volunteers, but it all begins and ends with Steffi. I can't give you an exact report, but we have been using multiple different databases of information to try to reach out to, I'll say, vulnerable parts of our population, the elderly in particular. We've used everything from our contacts through Senior Property Tax Relief Program to election to library databases. And we think through cross-referencing, we'll make pretty good penetration in our community. I have town staff making calls. They're all equipped with the same sort of script, and they're identifying places of need and types of need. And we're then coordinating with Project Grace to attend to that need. As I mentioned earlier, our Public Works Department delivered 80 meals today. That wasn't directly through that program, but that's the sort of effort that we're prepared and will make. And so that process is still unfolding, and I'm pleased that we're playing an active role in that. So thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, with that, we're going to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hamel, go ahead.
Thanks for letting me get one quick question here. Tom, I think you touched on this briefly, but on your reference to the budget process and timing. But can you help flag for us and for the public, the key things that are sort of the sea change events that are going to affect us fiscally? I know you touched on this at some level, but could you take another quick walk through that for us to understand that, the sort of things you're looking at, and some possible scenarios? I know you touched on it at a high level, but I was wondering if you could just do another sweep of that, please.
Yeah, I wish I knew, frankly. The sort of efforts I've undertaken immediately are really to kind of preserve ourselves, to prepare ourselves for the uncertainty ahead. I'm not an economist, but it strikes me that the economic challenges we have are situational right now, and they could be corrected. They're not structural. And so my own philosophy is that I don't expect we'll be in a long sustained recession like we were in the 2008 or 9 and beyond. Having said that, it certainly will be several months, if not years. And so I think everything we do today will prepare us for the future. So my budget will be deferring a lot of capital investment where we think we can afford to. It will be holding vacant positions open until we know more what the future holds and what our capacity and demands are. It will be as conservative as I can, and I welcome further input on non-property tax revenues that are kind of economically driven or consumer driven, like excise tax and building permit revenue. those have been juggernauts for us over the last decade. And those have been things that we can kind of consistently rely on increasing year over year. That's certainly not going to be the case. And so I think we're trying to be appropriately conservative in that regard too. But the short answer to your question, sir, is I don't exactly know what the future holds. I'm just trying to do everything we can to prepare for some rough times ahead.
Okay, two quick things I was just going to ask. I know that these have come up and I've heard them raised by a number of constituents, but one is the sort of budget process change that was made in Portland where they, basically sent a budget back and completely changed their process. Another one is, the prospect potentially of if there's going to be, school in session over the summer. So, I mean, I know these are kind of scenarios that may or may not apply to us, but can you give us a feel for how you might, how we might approach those or what their equivalents maybe? And that's just the end of my follow-ups, but thank you.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't, Don. My recommendation is that we have a budget process. We have, I think, a viable platform through virtual meetings to at least start that process. And I think even continue its review, and we'll have to, at least through review. I'm hopeful that we may, by the end of the budget timeline, we're in a different time. But I think we have the means, the ability to do this, and we ought to stay on as regular and consistent a schedule as possible. Obviously, we need to adjust accordingly. If, as you say, the kids are doing summer school, that's going to mean something totally different to the school. And I think we all need to be prepared to react to the situation in front of us.
Thanks, Tom. I know these are unprecedented times, so I wanted to thank you for the measures you've taken so far and leadership you've displayed. So thank you. And thanks to your staff. I know the finance group in particular has been working pretty hard. Thank you.
Councilor Hayes?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place or not, so I kind of defer to the chair, but just picking up on that, is this the appropriate time to kind of share the conversation from the Joint Finance Committee that met last week around some of these issues, or do you want to defer that to sort of the normal councilor comment section?
Well, we have the committee reports, but at this point, I mean, Peter, I'm purposely front loading this meeting for those that might be watching. So if you want to give an update, that I think that would be useful for us. So, yeah. Yeah. So I think I'll just kind of, piggyback on what Tom said, that we did have a joint finance committee meeting last week. And as it was actually the first pilot run of the Zoom process. And this really was the main topic of the conversation about what will be the process or should be the process for the budget. And where we agreed on kind of ending was a while ago, before all of this happened, we had come up with a process by which we gave some goals to both the municipal side and the Board of Education side that should, in an ideal world, deliver about a 3% budget increase, mill rate increase, which is what historically we've been at, which is what our target was. The world has really changed. Excuse me. The problem with Zoom. The world has really changed since then. What we are on track for, I think, Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we are planning to do is the first presentation of both the superintendent of schools and the town manager will be next week, right?
Yes, April 8th.
April 8th. That should deliver in an ideal world about the 3% increase, but the problem becomes that's before this all happened, that's impacted revenues. And also with the reval, there was about a $40 million decrease in the assessed value. I think we in good faith are going to listen to that, but I think it's going to be a real challenging conversation for all of us, our elected officials, town council, and Board of Education, to talk about, given the circumstances, the fact that there are a lot of people without incomes, what is the right place for us to settle as we go through the budget process. So if that's helpful, that's sort of the process or the pathway we're on. I suspect at that first read, there'll be a lot of conversation about where do we need to be.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. That's helpful.
Yeah, apologize for the dog.
No. We still got it. That was good. With that, I think I'll close this section of it. We'll move on to our old business. And I'm going to for those watching at home. We are now on to order number 20033. It's the second reading on the bond order for approval, for approved municipal and school capital improvement projects and the refunding of certain general obligation bonds of the town of Scarborough. And this is brought to us by the finance director. I don't know if Ruth wants to tee this up or Mr. Hall does. I don't know which one, but
Don't you need a motion?
well, it's sponsored by,
Or, oh, you're gonna let them talk and then
Yeah.
move it? Okay.
Yes, this is the second reading for the bond order, and this is Ruth Porter, Finance Director. So what we're asking is to move forward with the ability to issue bonds in the next few months. The goal would be to have the second reading today. Over the next 3 weeks, we would be working on putting together what's called the official statement. That would go out to potential bidders for the town. And then we'd have the May 12th, we would have a bid opening, if you will, and select the bid most advantageous to the town. And the goal would be to have the funds released to the town on May 28th.
Tom,
The
do you
total
want
we
to
are
answer that?
requesting, there's two parts. The amount that we are asking in the bond order is a total of, which of course I don't have. It's about $6,619,000, I believe, made up of 3 or 4 parts. So there's the $5,346,950, which is the basic capital equipment, and then the next 3 items are voter-approved referendum items, and those are listed separately.
Tom, do you have anything to add to that before I take comments from the public? You're on mute, Tom.
I beg your pardon. I have communicated with our financial advisor recently. The municipal bond markets are somewhat volatile. I can report as of last week, there were deals, similar deals closing in the 1%, 1.5% interest rate. So it's a very favorable environment. Things have gone up slightly this week, apparently, but they're still in the low to mid 2s. And so we expect that it's a favorable time to be going to the market. Investors are looking for a sure, safe bet, given some of the volatility, the great volatility in the stock market. So I actually think our timing is impeccable in that regard. I hate to say the circumstances in our society dictate that, but that's the situation. So I highly recommend that we do move forward. Again, we have spent probably 2/3 of this money already. And intend to spend the rest of it within a short time frame.
Councilor Clucci, is there a question for you, Councilor Clucci?
It was a question about the refunding. So you had brought us a proposal a few months ago about basically refinancing some of our existing debt. Is that contemplated with the refunding piece of this? So if it looks like it could be advantageous to the town to refinance a portion of our debt, that this would give you the authority to do so? Or am I misinterpreting that?
Yeah, Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the title is somewhat misleading in that regard. I don't believe that there's any refunding as part of this. What you're referring to several months back was actually converting tax exempt bonds to taxable bonds. And it was favorable, at least in the early going. As it got closer to close, it was not. And we decided not to move forward with that. But Ruth, clarify if refunding is part of this.
No, these are all new items. We are not refunding anything at this time. The financial advisor, Joe Cutara, usually does a review on an annual basis, and he will say, you know, these are prime for being refunded, or if the market's not good enough for that, then we just let them continue on until such time as they do become favorable.
Okay. Councilor Hayes?
Oh, you're muted.
Peter, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yep. Sorry. just a question to the town manager. Tom, you suggested about 2/3 of the funds have already been spent on various projects. Given the circumstances and where we are, is there anything in the third that hasn't been spent that is movable at all or delayable at all? Or are there all commitments that we're pretty much committed to and locked and loaded, so to speak?
Well, even some things that we've not paid the bill on, we're committed. They're not delivered, but they're encumbered in some cases. Public safety building costs in particular. I cannot speak to the school-related projects. I just don't know them well enough, to be honest with you. I will say that Ruth spends a couple of weeks working with senior staff and with the school to fine tune this list. And so anything that appears here, I believe is either already done or in the chute, in the pipeline one way or another.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Those that are in attendance with us, before I accept a motion, are there any comments in the public? You can just raise your hand. I'm going to give it a little bit longer than usual. Okay, I don't see any. So with that, do I have a motion
So moved.
Second.
and discussion? No discussion? Councilor Calucci?
Yeah, I'll discuss a little bit, and I think we'll come up with our process as we go through the budget process as well. But I, not recently, but when this first came to us, it struggled to try to reconcile because it's kind of shifting things across years. So essentially, we're appropriating some funds for fiscal 21 through this order. But really, essentially, some of them were already appropriated through prior budget cycles because some of these projects are multi-year projects. So that wasn't clear to me at the onset when I started looking at that. So it's just something that I want to make us aware of. And, as we go through the budget process, I want to see how these kind of hopefully track how these come through. So, go ahead.
Yes, just in response, you used the word appropriated. Maybe that was inadvertently, but what we have is budget authorization. And in those budgets, the funding source indicated and approved as part of that authorization was from financing. For one reason or another, the projects linger over years and we're now just getting to completing them or needing to pay for them. But we've been consistent with that original budget authorization to fund it by way of bond financing. And so I think just the word appropriation, it's really about budget authority.
Yeah, when we go through the budget, I thought that we actually appropriated the capital projects, but I may be misremembering that part.
We do. Some of the capital projects are appropriated depending on cost and longevity, the type of project it is. Other ones, typically the higher value, the longer life, are bonded. So there is a difference even within the capital budget. You're correct.
Okay.
Any more? Councilor Hamel?
Yes, I had a follow-up question, and I know with the last meeting we discussed this, there were some questions about, the timing of the funding and the fact that a lot of this related to stuff that had already been spent. But in looking at this and looking at the lists, I'm wondering, and this is not the time to solve for this, but it does raise for me the perennial question of, the size of our capital burden and how many things we just get in the habit of putting on the list and then having it, move slowly forward, year by year. And I know there still goes through a process of review by this council, by the finance committee, as well as ultimately the voters. But are we at a point in time where we really need to start thinking differently about how we use capital and what sort of commitment the town has made so far in the burden that we're carrying, and whether we want to continue that trend or try to approach it differently?
Thank you. Councilor Hayes?
Yeah, I think, Councilor, that's a great question. And, I know you're chair of finance last year, and we've started to do, that's been a longer term goal. How do we start looking at capital planning and making sure that as we look ahead and what we do know is coming down the pipeline with some of the big capital items, that we really look at that. And I know Tom's staff has done a lot of time modeling, and it makes a huge difference whether our normal capital spend is 2 million or 4 million or 6 million. It has a huge impact downstream. So I think your suggestion is great. The finance committee really needs to do a great job. And I think that gets to John's questions about how can we come up with a much more thoughtful and methodical and clear process around capital expenditures. And maybe it's as simple as, and I think it really illustrates, we're always looking ahead at the capital projects we approve. I don't think at the same time we're doing the budget, we look behind us to say, what have we already committed to that's coming into the pipeline? So I think it's a great suggestion that there's work to be done there, and we should do it because, as we've talked about, we've got some big items coming at us. So it's going to be really important to have some discipline and make some choices.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Any others? So I guess I'll close where Peter, I think that's a great point where it's funny how we don't look what's coming. Like, some of these I think are far back as 10 or 12 years approved. So we tend to lose sight of those. And so when we're going through this budget process, perhaps it'd make more sense to us to look a little bit more behind on what is coming down the pike, so to speak, where, we talk about how much our debt service payments are each year, almost ignoring what's happened in the past. And I think that as a council, we definitely need to get better at that. So good points, both of you. Tody, would you like to call the vote, please?
Yes. Counselor Cucci,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Glystein,
Yes.
Counselor Katerina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
He's on mute.
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, we are now at order number 20036. It's an act on the name posted to the Senior Advisory Board as recommended by the Appointments and Negotiation Committee on March 4th, 2020. And this is brought to us by Mr. Hamill. Would you like to tee this up?
Yes, thank you. This is a first reading and vote for our recommendation to the council to approve the appointment of Cheryl LaRue to the Senior Advisory Board for the position of a second alternate with a term to expire in 2022. And that was in our last meeting on March 4th, 2020. This was recommended.
Thank you, sir. Are there any comments from the general public? I don't see any. With that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
Second,
And discussion?
Uh,
Counselor Katerina?
Yeah, I just want to thank Ms. LaRue for stepping up to do this job. I was the advisor, I guess, liaison, whatever you want to call me, to Senior Advisory Board. And I know Cheryl's real involved with pickleball and some other things in town. So I think she will make great contributions to this particular committee.
Thank you. Any others?
Well, right now, the Senior Advisory Committee is not meeting, but if we can figure out Zoom, maybe it will happen. We'll be talking to Todd and community services, but it might be a challenge. But right now, it'll be great to have Cheryl, and hopefully once we're meeting again, we'll be able to get some stuff done.
Thank you. Any others? Tody, would you like to call the vote?
Counselor Cucci,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Glystein,
Yes.
Counselor Katerina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving now to order new business, excuse me. This is order number 20037. First reading and waive the second reading on the request to change the interest rate of a 5% per annum on unpaid taxes after March 16th, 2020, as established by order 19061 to 0% per annum in view of the financial hardship imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is brought to the council by me, but also by many others. I'll tee it up, and then I think Councilor Katerina will offer an amendment. This is pretty straightforward. Given the circumstances, I believe the town has collected the vast majority of the property tax that are due. But there are some businesses and individuals that have reached out to us to ask for some sort of leniency on essentially their property tax penalties as they foresee themselves to be late due to cash flow issues. So what's being proposed here is for us to not waive the property tax, but simply waive the penalty that we charge for late property tax. Coincidentally, we did the same thing in the last payment cycle due to the revaluation, and I don't believe there was much of a financial impact to the town, and I'm sure the few that took advantage of it did appreciate it. So with that, actually, before I take a motion, I'll get public comment, Councilor Katarina, then have you do it.
Mhm.
So is there any members of the public that would like to speak to this? Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Gates if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, it's Marvin Gates, 423 Black Point Road. Principally, this is another test. Forgive me for taking your time. I did want to voice my appreciation for this that you're voting on. I think we've paid our taxes, but it's certainly nice to see the town think of everyone who's in town and those who might be afflicted by the COVID-19 crisis. The other aspect of my comment is to say thank you very much for having us on this way. And I am, after I make my comment, going to leave the meeting, and thank you again.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you. And I don't see any others. So with that, do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Councilor Katarina?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I might, I think that we need to just put an end date on this, because as it stands right now, it could go ad infinitum, to use some Latin. And just by putting the end date on it, we can always adjust it, if we need to extend it later. So my my amendment would be following COVID-19 pandemic, it would be comma, such adjustment to end July 1st, 2020, period. And that's it. That's my amendment.
Is there a second on the amendment?
I second it.
Any discussions on the amendment? No. Oh, Councilor Gleisteen?
So is that saying the penalties start again July 1st? Is that what the amendment is saying?
Through the chair?
Yep.
Yeah, technically, but it gives us at least a date. We can always extend it if we want to later, but I just don't like to see open-ended changes like this, if you're leaving it open-ended, because what if we forget to go back to it? And I mean, I want to see people help during this time, but I also don't want to leave it open-ended that we've got 0% on as a penalty, so to speak, interest rate on unpaid taxes. So,
Councilor Gleisteen?
Right, so I just want to clarify. So we're saying 0% between now and June 30th. And then starting July 1st, you wouldn't be responsible for whatever penalties might have accrued between now and June 30th. Is that correct? And then we would start again, unless we adjust it, like Jean Marie says, on the penalty would start accruing July 1st. Is that correct?
I'll have Mr. Hall answer that.
That would be my understanding. The interest rate of 5% would go back to effect starting July 1, 2020. Ruth Porter, would you offer any different opinion there?
Yes, the way I'm looking at it is that on July 2nd, if you will, if the taxes are unpaid, they would go back to 5% for 1 day. In terms of penalties, this is the interest rate that we're talking about specifically. There are, what we call lien fees and certified fees that we, by state law, will be applying regardless of this, but this is just the interest rate portion of it.
Any more discussions on the amendment? So I guess I would offer, I'd be willing to go a little bit later than July 1st, but I'm completely okay personally. Councilor Gleason?
Yeah, would we want to maybe consider July 16th, which would be, a straight 4 months?
Yeah, I could live with that. That's no problem. I just threw out that date.
Okay, Councilor Caterina, do you want to withdraw it and then reintroduce it?
Sure. I'll withdraw my original amendment and I will now enter a second amendment, such adjustments to end July 16th, 2020.
A second on that amendment.
Second for discussion.
Discussion on that amendment. Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment. Tody, would you like to call it?
Yes. Counselor Clucci?
Yes.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
Counselor Glystein?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes. So now we're back to the main motion on the floor as amended. Are there any discussion items on that? Or any discussion, excuse me. Counselor Hamel?
Yes, I just like to say, I'm not sure this is going to be a, significant impact or, benefit, but I think every little bit counts, and hopefully the spirit of this measure, is a reflection of a good start, and hopefully other efforts that may follow as we try to study ways to help people who are going to be in need because of this crisis.
Counselor Hayes? And then Counselor
Yeah.
Clucci?
Yeah, I think I'd kind of echo. I think this is I think it's great putting kind of an endpoint on it. But there's just so many uncertainties right now. I like Councilor Katarina's suggestion that this might be something we may want to revisit as we get closer to that date to see how many outstanding bills we have and what the financial situations are for our community, because this is really unprecedented times and there's lots of people without incomes at this point in time.
Counselor Clucci?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I agree that this is a kind of a drop in the bucket of, but it's something that we can do as a local municipality, other than directing you towards programs that are being sponsored by either the state or federal government. So if you are seeking help, please feel free to reach out. I know that SEDCO has been doing a fantastic job trying to understand the different programs that are quickly coming available. And I think we'll do our best to route you to the right person.
Good. Any others? Tody, you want to call the vote?
Yes. Counselor Clucci?
Yes.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
Counselor Glystein?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item number 8 is non-action items. There are none. Item number 9 is standing and special committee reports and liaison reports. My guess is these might be a little bit thin this evening, but I will start in the order I see everybody. So Councilor Katarina, would you like to start?
Sure. I don't have anything to notify people about at the moment other than long-range planning. I did get a notification that we are not meeting Friday morning, but to stand by. I assume it's just trying to figure out Zoom and everything else for folks. I do plan to have an ordinance meeting on, now I can't remember the correct date. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but it's the Thursday after the second meeting, our meeting this month at 4 o'clock. So do plan that, and it will be on Zoom.
April 16.
Thank you.
Councilor Clucci?
Yeah, I've actually gotten a little experience with Zoom over the past couple of weeks. The Greater Portland Council of Governments did meet to try to coordinate activities between municipalities in our region. And it was good to hear what other towns were considering. And there was actually a small subgroup formed to try to meet with the governor to try to get some consistency across the towns in southern Maine. So that was productive. Then SEDCO has also been meeting. They have daily meetings, I believe every morning at 10 o'clock, that the public is welcome to dial into and to ask questions that you might have. And she's also been bringing in subject matter experts on different areas of programs that are becoming available to our businesses. So those are two things that I'd encourage people to participate in, or two things that I've been participating in.
Councillor Johnson?
I have not been to any committees, like most of us. We're gonna have a communications committee on the 13th, and maybe structure some information for the public about the budget process and a few other things in the e-newsletter. So more to come on that.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Hayes?
Yeah, I guess I'll sound a little bit like a broken record, but I actually want to kind of ask for the patience of our community, as I suggested at the top. You know, we have worked really hard as joint finance committee meetings in the past. We have set some goals and, you know, we haven't always delivered them at the first read. I think we're setting up in a perfect world, as I said. We tried a different process this year where we thought the goals we set for both the town and the Board of Education was going to deliver our goal of a 3% budget. There've been some changes, but you're probably going to see on the first read those numbers. I think, Tom, the municipal side may be lower than that, but I think it's everybody's intent that first read was, you know, an attempt to deliver a 3% budget. There's lots of circumstances, and I suspect there's going to be a lot of conversations and rework between the first read and second read, as there always is. We just, you know, don't, as we come out of the gate on the first read, we need the community to help us to make some decisions about what are the right level of services and choices we need to make given the times that we're in. I think I ask for everybody's patience and support. It's going to be a challenging conversation, probably tougher than in prior years. So just trying to set the stage that there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting between now and the first read, and then between the first read and the approval of the budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Gleisting?
Yes, right now we don't have a Rules and Policies Committee scheduled, but it will be sometime in April. We're not, it's not urgent, so we're just trying to be sensitive to all the things that staff are working on. But I just encourage people to, everyone knows I have a personal frustration about our town website. It's a little hard to navigate, but one of the nice things that does work really well is go onto the website and look over on the right to the calendar. And it shows you all of the meetings that are going on. And if you click more details, you will now see the Zoom links and the YouTube links for getting onto these meetings. And one of the kind of really cool, exciting things is that some of our smaller committees, we didn't have, recordings and archived footage of these meetings, and now we will. So that's really great. And the Board of Education, the same thing. I, would not normally go to a Board of Education Communications Committee meeting, but hey, I saw it on the calendar and I'm like, I'm just going to pop in. So there are really great opportunities to hear a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. It's not behind the scenes. They've always been public meetings, but just not always that easy for people to get to. And so I would really encourage people. So if you've got a burning interest in rules and policies, we look forward to having you at the meeting. We're talking about the town charter, which is super cool, in my opinion. I love the town charter. And, I think it's also exciting to kind of hear as the committees get going again. We want to be very sensitive that it's not business as usual. We know that. We know people are struggling out there. But also, I think there's a sense of comfort in that a lot of people have hope for what we're going to have on the other side, and we're continuing to look to keeping the town going and keeping participation going. So I really encourage you to look at all those links in the calendar. They work great, and that's the best place to kind of keep track of what meetings are canceled and what meetings are on.
Thank you. Councillor Hamel?
Yeah, we'll, like the other committees, be trying to get back in gear this month for appointments to negotiations committee. We're in fairly good shape in terms of staffing. I think our focus will be primarily interest trying to help us get going virtually at a committee level in a fashion consistent with what we're trying to do here at a town council level.
Thank you. I'll use my time quickly. I'll give a community center update. Just to recap, I'll try to do a very brief recap of where we are. The Ad hoc Community Center Committee essentially said in its current form, the deal brought to us by Rispera and Company needed a second look and to perhaps renegotiate or negotiate further. Since then, we have had a second proposal from Rispera and Company. And I believe we were set to about a month ago to vote on whether to task that the ad hoc committee to look at that new proposal, to perhaps take a month or two to look at the new proposal. That was taken off the agenda today. I think we are all sensitive that this is not necessarily the time to pursue that. And further than that, it wasn't the time to really task an ad hoc committee to organize themselves enough to look at that. Now, that might change in a month or two, but I wanted to be very clear with the public on where we were with it. There was a second proposal. We were about to vote on whether we wanted to entertain said proposal by giving it to the ad hoc committee. That's been removed from the agenda with the times that we are currently experiencing. It did not make a whole lot of sense for us to take that on. If there's any developments, I'll keep everybody posted. There is material out there that was made for public consumption for a month ago. I've given that to the counselors. So there is some material for the public if they would like to consume it. I believe it was in your inbox, I believe last week. But for right now, we have pressed the pause button on it. If we unpress the pause button, I will make sure everybody knows. So with that, I have item number 10 we've already done. So item number 11 is council member comments. So I'll go in the opposite direction. So Mr. Hamel.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I just want to thank again, the town staff and all the groups that are helping, Project Grace, the library, our public safety staff. I know everybody's working hard. There's a lot we don't see because we're trying to stay safe at home. But I just want to thank the town for town manager and staff for their response, and also I'm glad that we're as a council getting back into an operating rhythm. I also want to thank members of the public who've given us input on various and sundry issues that are important to them, and I just want to reassure people that we're doing the best we can, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of town staff and others. And then I think in this time with so much uncertainty and and fear that tends to follow uncertainty, we need to try to appreciate the efforts that people are making and respect and understand that everyone is all each in their individual way and with their families struggling on a number of levels. But I'm encouraged by some of the steps we're taking, and I look forward to us trying to be flexible and responsive as we move through some of the town business in the coming weeks and months.
Councilor Gleisteen, I believe.
Yes, so you've heard tonight about some of the resources available for help. And the Project Grace website is scarboroughhelps.org. It's one word, scarboroughhelps.org. But there are also a lot of civic and religious organizations in the area that I've been hearing about who are doing a lot of efforts. The Project Grace website, scarboroughhelps.org, along with a lot of the other ones, the first two buttons that come up are give help and get help. So if you're looking to do one or the other, please get out there. There comes a time that sometimes we all need help. Maybe your time is today, maybe my time is tomorrow. So don't be afraid for asking help. I really appreciate Tom saying, call the town if you need something. We'll see what we can do. The town councilor phone numbers are all on the town council page. So I would encourage people to to seek out what they need. One of the main things we're going to need, in my opinion, is your input and feedback and participation in these virtual meetings. If this new way of doing business is going to be a success, we're really going to need you. And of course, email to the town council, which is one of your traditional ways. The way that we can't do anymore is right now is face-to-face. But I've already been really impressed by a number of residents who've stepped up to make comments and give input and ask questions about a wide range of topics, believe it or not. The business and the things people are interested in and concerned about go forward. We're going to need to hear from you now more than ever. And so please get the word out to your family and friends and neighbors about these meetings. And if you need any help in knowing how to participate, again, I get, I won't speak for everyone, but I'm sure any one of the counselors will be happy to walk you through it or help you do that. And I think Peter has said a lot eloquently around budget season. We would just really ask, again, your input, your feedback is going to be really important in these unprecedented times. But remember that the budget season was pretty much well underway and almost complete, especially on the school side. And so we made a decision to go forward with a lot of the work that had already been done. But just trust me when I say that, your government administration, your officials, your elected officials, we're keeping a very sharp eye out on the situation and making necessary adjustments, in this unprecedented time. And, the great thing about local government is, we're just your friends and neighbors. So feel free, and you should definitely reach out. So thank you.
Councilor Gleisteen, before you end, I will just take one quick second and I'll put this on the screen. So this is the website, scarboroughhelps.org, that Councilor Gleisteen was referencing, and these two buttons that say get help and give help. So we encourage everybody to go to this website if they would like to try to find a way to help out. And conversely, if you are somebody that's in need of help, please visit scarboroughhelps.org. Okay, with that, Councilor Hayes.
Yeah, I think I'll take a little different tack, and I just want to do a huge shout out to all of those folks in public service and on the front lines. I mean, you think about some of our medical care providers that are now flocking to places to give care without the appropriate protective gear. There was a story, and again, for public safety, there was people probably saw it, it's gone, viral, but there was a cardiac surgeon on a way to a hospital that was speeding, got pulled over by a police officer, and the police officer ended up giving her his personal mask so she could go because she didn't have any mask. I mean, it's just amazing. There are nurses that are flooding into New York City. These folks are putting themselves in harm's way. You have all of the folks that are, delivering food products to our stores, the workers in the supermarkets. Those are real unsung heroes right now. And just kind of a huge shout out for all those folks that are making calls to our communities, that are calling on the elderly. Unprecedented times, and it brings out the best in people. And it certainly brings out some of the worst in people when you hear about people hoarding some of these supplies and hoarding foods and other things. So huge shout out though for folks that are standing in harm's way to help all of us.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Johnson.
Echo just about everything said. These times are very stressful and emotional. And I think if we all just be smart and be safe, we'll get through it together.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Clucci.
Yeah, and I also echo what the other councilors have said, but I wanted to give particular kudos to the town manager and town staff. But this isn't easy for an organization to try to navigate and figure out how to function through this. And I think Tom did his situational awareness has been very strong throughout this process. From the onset, he sensed that there would be a financial impact to this and closed open positions and took extended the curtailment. But we would also be talking about his bonus typically around now, and recognizing the plight that a lot of folks in town are going to be in. He stop those discussions. So I think with his leadership, you also see other staff trying to figure out how they can help our community get through this. And I'm just really proud that we have this leadership and a great staff in town, and we will get through this. And if you need help, please ask.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Caterina?
Sorry, had to unmute. But pretty much echoing what everyone else has said. I know I put down on my list of things, particular thanks to our first responders, the police and fire and EMS. They're out there responding to calls every day, and they don't know what they're going to find at the other end. I know that they've changed their procedures in dispatch to ask people questions before they'll send someone out there, which is very different. And Robbie did a really nice video on that for folks who may not be aware of that. So if you call 911, you are going to be asked a few questions, but they're there to help. I wanted to give special thanks to staff who've been working from home and whatever to get the work done for the town. And I had particular thanks for Tom also, because I know I've talked to Tom a few times, and it's not easy being a town manager in this position, in this situation. It's extremely stressful because you think you're going one way with the town, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. And it's like throwing the cards in the air and you're not sure where they're going to come down. So, I appreciate the comments that have been made regarding budget, and, yeah, it's a whole new world out there, folks. Thank you to Betsy for mentioning the Project Grace Community Network. I've been doing a little bit of work with them to make sure everything gets done. And we showed that scarboroughhelps.org site. So please make sure if you can either help or you need help. And there's no shame in asking for help. We're here to help. And I know I've had a couple of people reach out to me with questions, and I've been able to refer them to where they needed to go. But I know that every single one of us on the town council are willing and happy to do that. Please know that we're all going to be touched by this pandemic. You talk about, what is it, the 6 degrees of separation. In Maine, it's maybe 3. Well, I have connections to 3 of the people who have passed from the pandemic. They're friends of family or a friend of mine. And I have one friend who came back from New Orleans and ended up being in the hospital. She was quite ill, and I'm happy to announce that she has been released from Maine Med. She's a survivor, and she's looking for a t-shirt that says survivor on it. But I have another person a friend, acquaintance, who just went into the hospital today. So just know that we're all going to be touched by this. And I wish everyone the best. Stay well, wash your hands, and stay home. And if you come to the beach, you guys probably saw my video. I said, we want you to come to the beach, but if it's crowded, go someplace else, go for a ride, do something, because we want to be able to maintain these outside spaces for all of our use safely. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, just to pick up on the beach, the beach decision is a tough one. I do want everybody to know that the decision was ultimately Tom's, but he was in close contact with me, with Dawn, and by proxy. I blew up everybody's phone to try to get everybody's opinion. That is one of those decisions where no matter what it was, I think he had our full support, because it's not easy and there's not a right decision. Or a right, we can get it 80% right is the best we're going to do. So if you're going to leave your house, which you shouldn't, stay 6 feet away from each other, and make sure to stay 6 feet away from each other on the beach, so we don't have to close the beach. It's specifically funneled towards Pine Point, so it can be monitored. It's the biggest open space we have in town. We don't want it to be overcrowded, because then there'll be no choice. So I just ask everybody to stay home, and if you need some mental health break and you want to get on the beach, please demonstrate good judgment out there, so we don't have to be more restrictive with the beach. Number 2, I'm somebody that's needed help. I've laid off 20 employees in these last 2 weeks. I've lost half of my income. And I just want to thank Karen Martin. She's been there for me. I picked up the phone to call her. It's a pretty big deal for me. Big deal for all of us that feel like not only is our livelihood on the line, but people that work with us. We have to make very hard decisions to do that. So needing help isn't necessarily just about donations or gas, which are all very important, but there's lots of people and lots of walks of life that are going to need lots of help here. So the best we can do is help each other out. Staff, I don't really give staff kudos a whole lot, but I've been incredibly impressed with staff. Our entire town staff is not at town hall anymore. That is a massive undertaking to take that amount of employees, uproot them, send them home, and still have a functioning government. And as Tom said up top, 2 staff members have been diagnosed with COVID-19. I mean, the strain that they're going under and they're still pulling through and we're still pulling this off is incredible. I won't give Tom too much praise because he's already got too much tonight, but I will say, but I will give him praise for he's, as far as the videos he's produced, this is out of his comfort zone, and I am greatly impressed and appreciative that he's made these extra efforts. This is not easy for him, and it's not easy for a lot of us. So I think, you know, one of the things we've called on him as a council is to become more of a leader, and I feel like he has stepped up with this, and I'm very appreciative of it because I think we need leaders in this time, and hopefully we can continue to navigate this. So,
Thank you.
Tony, would you like to? Oh, actually, motion to adjourn. Excuse me.
So moved.
Second,
Would you like to call the vote, Tony?
Yes, please. Counselor Cucci?
yes.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
Counselor Glystein?
Yes.
Counselor Katarina?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank
So-
you.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you.
Oh, make sure you turn off the YouTube live too.
Yep.